Oh, great. An error has occurred. Oh, boy. Oh, no, it's saying it's live. All right. So, guys, Anastasia and I were cleaning up the other day, and I spilled an entire container of fish scent all over Anastasia. And ever since, she's been like reverse aging, and it's starting to get weird. See, she thinks herself is in another place. It's getting really weird. Anastasia, are you gonna be like this forever?
No, I'm doing that.
Got off in town, resident on 70 Road. Got a nice wife and kids, y'all right inside the grove. You know I like Mr. Clark. Yeah, I should know he is my friend. Say if I just stay out the grave, he'll see that I don't go to the pen. Mr. Clark is a lawyer, he could last a dream. He's the first man to prove that water run upstream. Yes, you know he is my friend.
What's going on, fishy friends? We are here live at Smith Mountain Lake. Trust me, we are not doing this well. This place is amazing. Good grief.
The view is so breathtaking. I'm sure some of y'all might have been down here before, but just the nature, everything that's surrounding us right now is just really calming and relaxing. I love it.
So nice.
Mm-hmm.
We are pleased to have Captain Walleye Pete with us tonight. Man, this guy is a legend of light tackle, starting to become like nationally.
Wasn't he already?
I mean, certainly in this
Wasn't he on,
region.
like ESPN and CNN and ABC
I mean,
and
the man, the myth, the legend of light tackle, Walleye Pete is with us. We've got some new things coming down the pipe for the fishing channel. Are we talking about that yet?
Are we?
Are we hinting?
Hunting.
Whatever, let's just spill the beans. This summer, so this show is gonna stop for a while. And we're gonna transition into some other shows that we're gonna do that I think you guys will really like. One of them is...
We're gonna do a historical series on the bay.
Yep, so what types of bay history are we gonna
Oh, the piers, the bridges, everything.
Piers, bridges, everything. And then the other piece is gonna be pier fishing in Chesapeake. So we're gonna do some live when we can, but a lot of it's probably gonna be recorded just because of Wi-Fi issues. We're gonna go to any piers that you guys suggest, but we'll do, Solomon's, we'll do Point Lookout, we'll do
Franklin Manor.
our neighborhood, we'll do the jetties in Sandy Point. So all of that stuff is going to be coming your way this summer, along with all of our normal content. The boat building stuff we've got some announcements coming up on that very soon. But before we go any further, I want to introduce the sponsors for the night and just kind of give you guys some testimonials for this stuff. And I've already said that they're sponsors, right? So like we do have a dog in this fight. But one thing I can tell you, if you just look at the people that sponsor our channel, we don't get behind people where we don't use their product, or it's not quality product.
No.
So we got to use it. It's got to be high quality, and they got to be good people.
Yes.
So all of our sponsors right now fit that mold. But the first product is we were fishing in Georgia.
Yes.
And
Like yesterday.
we were fishing on Lake Raven, which is the lake I grew up on. It's the lake that made me think I don't know how to fish, and probably I still don't know how to fish. But remember how important it was to see your line when we were fishing with those Ned rigs?
Oh, yeah.
So the first day I had on the sort of blue set of big eyes from Hook Optics. And I was having a little bit of trouble, but the great thing about Hook Optics is they have so many colors. And I switched to sort of these amber lens big eyes, and the next day I could see my line amazingly well. So they make quality lenses. I know you love yours. Where's my jig?
Oh, there we go.
She's got my products, man. And the second sponsor, and I want to give a shout out to GI Jigs. And I think I'm going to add some content to this summer.
Okay.
And what that's going to be, I was thinking about on the way driving to Smith Mountain Lake. And I was thinking about it. For GI Jigs, I want to do a 3/16 ounce jig with a paddle tail challenge. And that basically is people can get on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere and tell me a place to go this summer. And I'll bet the challenge will be within 3 hours, I will catch something on a 3/16 ounce GI jig and a paddle tail.
Is it anywhere in the Chesapeake Bay or anywhere in general?
Oh, within reason. How about the region that we're shooting for?
Okay, fine.
So we're talking, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina,
All
Virginia,
right.
Maryland, I guess DC. Not a big fan, but what do you think?
All right.
Let's do it. I'm getting text. Are you delayed? I don't know. We still got people. Brian McCormick, we're here, buddy.
Should be tuned in, brother.
Yeah, so those are our sponsors. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your support. You want to introduce the man, the myth, the legend?
Yes. So,
I'll bring him in.
hey! So everybody knows Pete. Sometimes we do have guests on, well, not guests, but sometimes we do have people who tune in who aren't from the Chesapeake.
Mhm.
So I'd like to give a little background to those people about Pete. Some fun facts in there too. Got a long list. So over 30 years, right?
20.
30, it was like 22.
22 years guiding, but I've been guiding since I was a little kid with people in the neighborhood. I took them fishing all the time, but actually licensed guide since the year 2000.
Okay, I would like to hear that story, but we're going to save that for the last question because I like that one.
Gotcha.
Military veteran with over 22 years of service in the Air Force. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Dedicated to providing all his customers with having the most amazing fishing experience they've ever had. I love that. Native upstate New Yorker. I want to clarify that because I'm a New Yorker. Upstate is very different.
It is very good.
New Yorker. Upstate.
What else do we got about Pete? Oh, I got some fun facts that I found on the internet about you. It's funny, I found a whole lot about you from the internet, including.
Oh, you can't share all that. No. I'm just kidding.
I wonder if I know.
I don't know if this is still current, but favorite snack on the water, is it still crackers?
When somebody brings crackers and they offer them up, I eat them, no matter what they are.
Favorite food, all seafood?
Yeah, I love all seafood, but I love a good piece of meat too.
Favorite music, country and classic rock?
Oh yeah, classic rock especially, man. Nothing like the 80s and 70s.
Well, Pete, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Before we get too far in, we made a pretty big splash, I hope, on Facebook saying what the prize of the night is going to be. And it seems like since I announced that, you added to it. So, Pete, you want to go through what the prize for this evening is for the question of the night that Walleye Pete will choose. So we don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Our questions are not eligible. So.
All right. Well, it's a walk-on trip or 200 off if you have a group. So if you win, then it's 200 off or a walk-on trip. And some BKDs, not these. I've got a bunch of BKDs, but I'll be shipping them to you. So I've got some BKDs to give you, along with the walk-on trips. Whoever wins cool stuff. And with the walk-on trip, we will communicate immediately and we'll set a date. So you don't have to wait for a walk-on to open up. I'll just set a date just for your walk-on and then I'll fill it in. Or you can get other folks to go if you want. It's all good.
Oh,
Pretty sweet deal.
almost so sweet. I'm tempted to just quit this and start asking cool questions. Cool prizes.
Yeah.
I love that one.
You're not eligible, unfortunately.
Oh.
But, you know, Pete's actually got now, after this show, he's going to have 2 walk-ons
That's true.
put out to our people. So, NC Pierman from
Yes.
North Carolina,
Tim,
Tim.
amazing man.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get him up because I want to go fishing with him on that trip. But let's ask some of our lame questions before some of the good ones start coming in.
Oh, I don't think this is lame at all. I like this one. So, like I said, I did some digging about Pete on the internet, and this one I like because if you know some of my questions from previous interviews, I really love giving back to the community. And Pete has done an amazing job with what he does. Chartering, I know that's paid, but I'm sure the experiences you had, which we'll save that question for later, transcends fishing. So this one I found that I thought was pretty interesting is that you were involved in a Wish to Fish organization.
Yeah.
This is an amazing organization. Can you please tell us more about this organization that you volunteered for, what you did, and whatever else you want to share about that?
It was so long ago when it started that I can't even remember who it was that started it, but it was back in the early 2000s. I had just became a fishing guide based out of Solomon's, and I got involved in Wish a Fish, and I got involved so much that I directed the chapter in Solomon's, I'd say for 6 years or so, where it was a big thing. We had to organize parking. We had to get all the folks to volunteer to bring disabled kids in. And we got volunteers, we got volunteer boats, we got folks on land. Everybody was giving things. I mean, people were incredibly giving. And we would get 30, 40 anglers at a Wish a Fish event. And we also had Windows Catering. I'll never forget. Windows Catering, Henry DiNardo, donated, for 300 people, he donated food. That catering company is insanely incredible, still is, will always be, probably the best one. But anyway, it was a big shindig, and the kids got to go fishing, and all the captains were thrilled to do it, and we all worked as a team, and the kids were smiling. So it was a really wonderful thing. And then it evolved from Solomon's, and it moved up to Annapolis. They were able to get more folks involved, and Skip Zink jumped in on it, and some other folks. And I jumped out, but up there, they're still doing it. So it's a wonderful thing.
Question. We had technical difficulties.
Oh.
Sorry, guys, we have some technical difficulties. Facebook blocked the whole thing.
Oh.
So we only have a YouTube audience right now.
Okay.
But I'm going to let my trusty co-host take over for just a few minutes while I deal with these technical difficulties.
Yeah. So what was special to you about working with this organization? What pulled you in? What was great about those experiences?
It's just making folks happy. To see a mother thrilled to see her child with a disability catch fish was amazing to me. So I loved it. I promoted it, and I was all in on that and loved it. That's why I did it. Just making great memories for folks that typically couldn't get one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
So the organization is still up today. Is there any guidance you can give maybe some of the captains who are on the show right now?
Drink up in Annapolis. I'd say, if you were to Google Annapolis Wish a Fish, then you would probably get information on that. I know that the COVID situation slowed that down, so I don't actually know where it's at right now, but I'm sure we could find out easy enough.
Yeah, I read that they also take donations too. So if you can't give of your time, you can give in other ways as well.
Absolutely, you can do that, no problem whatsoever.
So typically Grant asks these questions, but so species and fishing. So now I'm going to sidebar here for a minute because I've been at one of your seminars, and you do about maybe 2 of them a year.
I did 4 this year. 4.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
so much great information. I've learned so much. You know, it kind of chimes into our next question. Maybe you can help the audience, and we speak to beginners as well. I know a lot of people on here fish a lot and they have familiarity, but we always try to speak to people who don't know. So how do you search for fish? You know, what tools do you use? You know, I know what they are, but can you share with us in brief what it is that you use to find the species that you're targeting for?
Well, when I'm in my home water, you know, I'm experienced in my home water. If I go somewhere new, I utilize Google Earth, I utilize charts, and there's one thing that's common no matter where I fish for whatever game fish, and that is current plus structure equals fish. But not always. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, but not always. Physics is easy because this plus a few other things always equals that. But when it comes to fishing, this plus that doesn't always equal that. So adapting and overcoming and covering ground and knowing your water is crucial. So when I go to like Florida, I went to Florida 3 years ago, never having fished there. And I learned it right away. It was with Google Earth. It was with charts. I got a friend down there. He showed me the lay of the land, so I understood where I could and could not go, you know, so I didn't break my boat, for God's sakes. But I evolved quickly into catching fish there with current plus structure equals fish. And I took my time. I really evaluated areas and dissected them, small areas at a time. So what I always recommend to folks, you know, fishing the Eastern Shore Islands or up in Eastern Bay, if you're fishing shallow water, skinny stuff, pick a small area and dissect it. Learn the water. Know where you can go and where you can't go safely, and look for that current and that structure. And you find current and structure with maybe, you know, with a good healthy 3 to 5 feet of water. I like 4 feet and above, but you find that, and there's probably going to be fish there. And if there's not, go back there again, because at some point there's going to be. But anyway, that's what I do.
Yeah, no, I like that point that you made, because I've already been out twice on the kayak and Smith Mountain Lake here, and structure is not, it doesn't work here.
Structure doesn't work?
Because there's no current, right?
I went.
There's no current, that's true.
1 mile, no current. So structure here is good for maybe bait fish.
Right.
I'm gonna share a picture of
That's
a
good.
bait fish that I hooked today, but the bigger fish that you're searching for is in deeper water here, and that changes sometimes here too. But I did exactly what you just said. Being on the kayak, I can sit there for hours and milk a spot, which is not good. So I have to keep on moving, but
Yeah, well,
I went slow around just in this area over here.
yeah.
So that was interesting as well. But I got some ideas about where at least some of the fish are, at least today. They may not be there tomorrow. So like you said, you have to adjust.
They're probably on temperature breaks and things like that. It's got to do with temperature, correct? I mean,
Yes,
that's a
that
whole
is true. The guy at the bait shop said that it's been so cold here that the bite was going to be tough. But today was really one of the first days where the temperature got really warm, except for maybe a week ago when it was 80. But for the most part, it's been pretty cold here. So
yeah,
it is tough to bite.
Been cold up here.
Pete, I want to, sorry, I think I got most of it resolved. Facebook just kind of crashed on us tonight. So I just reverted everyone else through Facebook, hopefully, not Facebook, YouTube.
Okay.
Hopefully that'll take care of it. But Pete, I want to know about the fish on the thumbnail for this show tonight. That Goliath grouper. Can you walk us, whatever you can tell me about that story?
Yeah.
I want to hear, like, what you ate for breakfast that day,
I will
what deodorant you were wearing, because
yeah.
I want that.
That morning, I had a crew from up here. All my crews in Florida are from up here, basically all of them. So I had a crew from up here, great guys, and we were going out just before daylight, but it had blew hard for 2 days, and I was going to go around the north end of Anclote Key, and the chart showed me a channel. I had been through that channel, and all of a sudden I was running, and then I wasn't. That channel disappeared over a 2-day blow. So before we ever got out, we got stuck. So we all had to get out of the boat. We pushed it back, and we ended up no damage done to the boat. Because when I felt something, I immediately started easing back and tilting at the same time. So the bow of the boat went in, and then we slowed down, blah, blah, blah. But we all got out. The guys harassed me endlessly. And then we got out to where we were going, and we were catching the heck out of amberjack. And a couple times in the first couple hours, some big amberjack all of a sudden were getting ate. And they weren't getting ate by a shark. When a shark eats one, they take off screaming, running. When a Goliath sucks one in, they just wobble right back to the bottom and stay there. It's like you're snagged. So my first year down there, this happened to me. So the second year down there, I ended up being prepared. I made a hand line with a 3/8-inch rope, 500-pound leader, and a 20-aught circle hook. And I told these guys, I said, if we get into something where it looks like Goliath is eating our fish, we're going to drop one right back down on him and see what happens. Because I'd never done it before. I just wanted to do it. Kind of like a bucket list challenge. So, my God, we got ate off a couple times, and we pulled a nice 40-incher up, and we put a circle hook in it, dropped her back down, and amberjack are strong. He swam down strong, and I dropped him out 50 feet.
So pause for a second.
Yep.
You put a 40-inch bait down
Yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, put a 40-inch bait on it, dropped it down 50 feet. I had my line notched off at 10 feet. We put some marker on it every 10 feet, so I knew how far down I was putting it. And when I put it down there, I didn't know what to expect. I'd never done it, not one time ever. And I cleated it off after I dropped 50 feet out, and it was 60 feet of water. And the current was ripping, so the line it bowed out a little bit. So the line was wobbling in the water, and it was bowed, and the fish was swimming good. And then I went up to the front, and one of the guys said, Peter, something strange is happening. Well, the bow went boing, and then the back of the boat started sliding sideways. Choop, 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 choop. And I said, oh, my God. I grabbed it and shoop, set the hook. And one of the guys had the gloves ready, got the gloves on, and it took only 3 minutes to hand line it to the top. And it was 300 to 400-pound fish. And then, as you see, I jumped in with it because the other guys would not. They were chickens because we did see a shark or two. But people dive in that water all the time, don't get ate. So I didn't think I was going to get ate. So that was it. We caught it on an amberjack. I just wanted to see one, and it was cool as heck. That's what I did.
Man, yeah, when I saw that fish the first time, that's what, a year or so back, right?
Yeah.
When I saw that picture the first time, the first thing that I did was I went to Google and I searched, can Goliath grouper eat humans? Because you look at that picture and it looks like, you could have fit in that fish's mouth.
No, that one might, a 600-pounder I wouldn't want to be around when he's hungry. That's for sure. That one only weighed 300 to 400 pounds according to his length and it was an estimation based on his length and the growth charts on those fish. That was a huge fish. It was just a magical thing to see and touch, hold his fin for a second. It was just amazing. So,
oh man, I don't know about the science behind Goliath grouper, but how old is that fish? It's 300 or 400 pounds.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
They grow fast though, apparently.
Yeah. So here's a question coming in from Wayne Young. Wayne asked, Pete, would you explain the differences between targeting specks and targeting stripers in shallow east side waters?
Yes, sir. And you say that was Wayne Young?
Yes, sir.
Wayne, just follow your own book, man. That's Wayne Young's book right there. Wayne Young is a great guy. He puts together some structure books that are insane with grid coordinates and everything. But anyway, Wayne Young is cool. He's been on my boat, and I love Wayne. So the question, I see the question, difference between targeting specks and targeting stripers in shallow eastern shore waters. Well, we're going to go with small baits all the way for specks, small baits. We're not going to go with even, we're certainly not going with 10-inch BKDs or a big metal, but we're not going metal shallow anyway, or even a big surface lure. I'm going to go small with an X-Rap 10 that's maybe 3.5 inches long, or a small paddle tail. And in the Eastern Shore Islands, structure's a good thing. Wood, rocks, points. But the stripers are typically right up on, here's the hump right here. Here's the hump. Here's the current going across it. So there's a rip right here. The specks like to be downstream of the rip. The stripers like to be on the structure or just down from it. And the specks will a lot of times set up quite a ways from there. So stripers right on the structure, specks could be quite a ways off. So I'll make a drift and really cover quite a bit of water out away from that major structure, rip-making structure area. And I'll cover ground. I'll have people fan casting out there, and that's how I catch specks. And also, I look for the warmest water. This time of year, it's absolutely looking for the warmest water. I've had 66 degrees this year so far over there, but now, last night, it dropped all the way down in one spot that I saw at Bishop's Head. It dropped to 54. It was 66 just 2 days ago.
Oh man, and then you sort of taught me this, and I went and found out for myself a couple of years ago. But this time of year, the water temperature between the shallows,
yeah,
and the deeper section is drastic. I mean, you could go.
It was 11 degrees 2 days ago. 2 days ago, crossing the bay in the morning, I saw 54 something, and I got into areas over on the east side where there'd be a big cove, very shallow, with water coming out of that cove that had been warmed up by the sun. It was 65, 66 degrees. That's a giant difference. So all the microorganisms are going into that warmer water, and the predator fish are going to be, the minnows, the bigger bait fish, and all that stuff is going in that warmer water. So I target the warmer water. Yeah, there's a bunch of stripers in that water, but specks, that's where they go, and that's where I target them right now.
So what's the, we're going off script a little bit, but I've noticed, ever since we've been trying to, go from this area to expanding our region, that speckled trout act very differently everywhere else except, they really act the same everywhere else except our area of the Chesapeake. So down further south, topwater is the jam for speckled trout.
Okay.
Suspended twitch baits are really effective. Not effective here at all. What you've determined, what I've noticed is those little 3-inch DOAs seems to be the trick, where they just seem to act a little differently in our area.
I'm telling you, there are times when they bomb surface plugs here too. I get them on. I don't use those I don't use those twitch baits you were talking about.
Yeah.
I have caught them on X-Rat 10s. I catch more on paddle tails, BKDs. But I have gotten many on one of these right here, chug bug, storm chug. I have bombed many beautiful specks. I mean, many beautiful specks on chug bugs. Sometimes the biggest specks will bomb these. They're going to be on rock piles and on wrecks and over grass. Holy heck, yeah. Over grass beds when they're in there. See, the doggone specks in our area move around a lot. So, I love it when they stay in one spot for a little bit, but they don't stay long. And then they'll move into another pattern, like at a duck blind. Remember that, Lady C? You caught one at a duck blind.
Man, you got a good memory. Wow.
And Grant got lucky as can be where he shouldn't have caught one at the plant. But that was pure luck. Lady C's, yours was skill. His was luck.
Man, that was my personal best. That thing was a gator. That was like a 26, 27-inch trout.
Yep, that was pretty.
But, I hear what you're saying about the surface plugs, but it is almost a fact at this point that, like, south of, Virginia, that Mirror,
yeah,
man, that thing is like gold from North Carolina all the way to Texas. And I was throwing something like that similarly on your boat, and you looked at me like I had 3 heads. You're like, why are you throwing that crappy bait? And I was like, because it works everywhere else. It didn't work on your boat.
But here's what I like. I like when I'm proven wrong. So
you're right.
I was right that day, but I would have loved to have happened. This is the #1 bait lure in Florida where I was fishing for specks, and every fish eats them. It's a monster 3X shrimp, and they work here too. They work. I've used them here, even though it's a shrimp. They still work here, but they're like $4 each. So I don't like to get them on stumps, and I don't like anything to bite them in half. But monster 3X shrimp in Florida was insane. I mean, I didn't ever take them off, and I just.
Are you seeing more shrimp in our area?
Nah, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a whole bunch of them in the Honga River. I was catching stripers with tentacles sticking out their mouth. It was crazy, and they were going nuts. But last year I didn't see any, and I certainly haven't seen any this year. So I haven't seen them. I'd like to see them. That would be nice. But
yeah, we caught a fair amount of them actually at Jane's Island Campground at night last year.
Did you last year? Okay, well I didn't see him in my area. That's still
white shrimp.
That's still quite a ways south. Yep.
Ready for another question? Some MIGs, right?
Next fishing.
By Temp, when do you start fishing inshore islands, and when do you push back out to the bay?
Another good question.
That's a great question. Typically, when the water strikes 50 degrees in the shallows, it's typically in the 40s in the main stem of the bay. But that warming, Grant, like you mentioned, that you learned, that shallow water in the spring warms up quick. So the main stem of the bay, would be say 45, but after 2 nice days, say 60, 65 degrees with sun, that little cove, that shallow cove is going to heat up, and water's going to rip around a point and through a trough because of the currents troughing it out. You're going to have 10 degrees warmer, 8 degrees warmer, 6 degrees warmer, and that's going to light it up. So when that water gets 50, I feel like I can start catching stripers over there if we could target them. And then in the fall, when the water gets below 50, it's like the bait leaves. When the water's at 50, the bait starts coming in. When it's below 50, the bait is gone. And that's when we go back out in the main stem of the bay and start chasing the bird activity late November, December. I catch fish in the islands well into November as long as the water's over 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got a question coming in for our boy Tommy Tech Outdoors. What's going on, buddy? He says, now that you guide in both Maryland and Florida, which fishery do you like better? I gotta say, the audience is coming with the questions tonight.
Well, they have to when we're talking to Pete.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Because just like on his boat.
I love Tommy. You know why I love Tommy Tech? Here's one good reason. He's shorter than me. But anyway, and I can say that. Him and I can talk like that. You can't say it, but we can. Anyway, Tommy Tech is an incredible angler right there. And he's something else. He's amazing. Now that you guide in both Maryland and Florida, which fishery do you like better? That's a really cool question. Here's why. Because before I fished Florida, I had people fish with me that were from Florida, Carolina, Georgia, and we had, on a lot of those trips, crushed big specks. And they couldn't believe the specks we had. The specks in Florida where I fish are smaller. But anyway, in the islands where I fish, I consistently bend sticks with nice pullage, with drag movement. Where I fish in Florida, the inshore fishery is loaded with anglers. There's a bunch of retired folks in the water all the time. There's jet skis everywhere. Where I'm at, I know there's remote areas too, but where I was, there was a lot of activity. And then, to go outside into the Gulf, that's dangerous, and you got to be careful out there, and you can only go out there just so many times. So I'll tell you what, after fishing 3 years in Florida and having spent 20 plus years guiding here in this skinny water from the Susquehanna Flats, I haven't fished there in a while, all the way to the CBBT, I like Chesapeake Bay. I get more sticks bent. I'm more confident every single day I fish here because, well, for one, I know the water real well, and I'm not competing with 100 boats with jet skis and craziness. So I prefer Maryland still, although Florida's way cool, and for a little while I love it. But I'm telling you what, I would go nuts if I had to stay there.
You know what? Lady C's probably gonna get on me later for this because we really try to avoid politics and regulations on this show. But I just gotta say it. Maryland, if the fishery was run like Florida runs their fishery, it would be world class. Get out of here. It would be insane.
I can only shake my head and imagine because I'm no fisheries biologist. There's a lot of smart people out there. But yeah, I don't disagree with that one bit. Striped bass are different than redfish and specks and all that. But what Florida does, when there's an issue, they react to it right away. And Joe Jim Bob commercial angler or charter boat captain or guide can't say boo to them.
Yeah.
They do it. Our people up here don't. It's a little bit, it's a lot of bit sad, but anyway.
No, you go down there, and each year you gotta make sure you know what's going on because if they're overfishing snook, they'll just shut it down. They don't care.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yep, they will absolutely in a heartbeat. I love that about Florida, and I got checked down there because I was a Maryland boat. They did like to check me because there's so many different regs. They figured they might get a ticket out of my fish box because I don't know the regs, and my boat said Maryland on it. So I did get pulled over twice this year, but knock on I did not get the hook. I had everything was good.
I mean, it's not luck if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's good not to have a record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so another question from Sam. Please explain the 4-foot rule.
Sam.
Sam.
The 4-foot rule, Sam, is when you hook a fish. Okay, safety is crucial on my boat. You know, we got to be safe. Safe for the rod. See these rods right here? These rods. This is my wife's rod, by the way. It's pink.
Oh.
But anyway, see the end of these rods? They're very skinny and small. They're not designed to abruptly bend on the tip. So what the 4-foot rule does, it makes it so no abruptness occurs at the tip. So the abruptness is like when it bends, when it really shouldn't bend way up here. It's not designed to bend up here. So if you've got barely any line out and you start pulling a fish up or anything, you can break the tip off. So 4-foot rule saves the tips on my fishing poles. And the 4-foot rule also saves people from getting hooked, because when you're close to the tip and you're close to the tip and you're fighting with the fish, you can get hooked so easy. 4-foot gives you room. And also 4-foot allows the fish to stay on the surface of the water while the tip is 4 foot up. And I or you can gently bring the fish in with the line. So we don't have a loaded gun anymore. You didn't mention the loaded gun, Sam, but a loaded gun, when you have this rod bent over with a fish and you're lifting it out of the water and then it comes off and it pops up and then the lure flies up. So this here's a loaded gun. The lure is a bullet and someone will get shot. Ask me how I know. I've been shot an awful lot. So I'm pretty puckered over 4-foot rules and bent sticks at the boat, loaded guns. So anyway,
Hey.
I hope that answered Sam's question.
Guys, I'll tell anyone who's watching this this show tonight who has not fished with Pete on his boat. 1, book it now. Don't look back. Book it now. That's the first thing. And the second thing is leave your ego at home, because if you do it wrong, he's going to tell you. But you're going to learn. You're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. I had to hug you a lot, I think, because you were always messing up.
Oh man, you told the first time I fished on your boat, I've probably been fishing for 30 years, and I'll be darned if I didn't learn a whole lot before the end of the day. That was for sure. And I had to check my ego a couple times. I mean, you told me about jigging horizontally versus vertically for spec, and it made me a better angler. So
good.
We got another question coming in from Aaron Gover Smith.
It's long.
He says, since you've been guiding for so long, where is the state of the bay in your opinion? And what can a recreational angler do to help the bay and all the fish in it?
Well, I'm glad I can see that question there. So since state of the bay, the state of the bay, when I first moved here in 1995 and I went out to the gas docks and chummed with guys that I worked with in the Air Force. It's the first time I ever went on the bay. They chummed. I brought my walleye tackle box and I brought some black bucktail jigs. And I told those guys, I'm not slinging that bait. And they said, you'll never catch a fish. So they chummed. And what I saw was I couldn't believe with my eyes how many bluefish and stripers were swarmed up behind that chum slick. And then I slipped my bucktail back in there and they weren't too interested till I put a piece of chum on. And then I was able to catch them. But what I did notice back then, there was a lot of sores. There was more sores on fish back in the late 90s and early 2000s than what I see now. And it may be because of where I fish. I fish more remote now. When you go to a major structure like the Chesapeake Bay Bridge or like Cedar Point, the rock pile, or anywhere that's a spot where the fish don't have to move too much, they can stay there and still eat. Like the gas docks, that was a gigantic structure. A sick fish could eat there. I saw a lot more sick fish back then. Currently, now, I rarely see a really bad fish. I haven't fished the Bay Bridge for a while, though. I know they get some pretty ugly ones up there. And also up there near the Chum and Fleet and up in that region, the salinity's lower up there, and that's natural because it's fresher water up there. And the water gets hot. And I think those fish up there get sores more often than they do down here in the salt. So I think it's better. I've got more grass in shallow water than I used to have. Although it does vary from year to year. You'll have grass in one area good one year, and then it's gone the next year, but it grew up somewhere else. So I got to say, overall, it's better. That's what I think. Now,
You know what, guys? It's not all doom and gloom. You got a guy that fishes the Chesapeake Bay, probably what, 225 days out of the year?
Yeah, over 200 for sure. And I had to cancel my tomorrow trip, but it would have been 4,176.
I don't think the Bay is without its issues.
Yeah.
But I think it does. I think there is something to, like, it's almost cool to talk doom and gloom nowadays, like the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
That's for sure. I mean, and what can a recreational angler do to help the Bay and all of the fish in the Bay? Well, that's a tough question because I've been around for quite a while, and I went to a lot of meetings and things, and the way the politics are intertwined with the commercial fisheries and it's ugly, and recreational guys, the guys that would rather have fish be managed for numbers and not how many they can sell. It's ugly. What can you do? You can follow what's going on. You can go to those meetings because numbers do matter. At some point, they're going to matter. With every political change, there could be a change that could help us, the recreational guys. But, don't pollute. That's for sure. If you see somebody throwing stuff in the water, let's not do that. Be careful with all that kind of thing. And also when it comes to catching, if you're catching and releasing, do it safely. Don't catch and release a bunch of fish in the heat. Catch a few and leave, because in the heat they're not as well off to survive in the heat. Now, right now, they don't die. You have to gill hook them or knock them in the head with a hammer for them to die.
But you can't fish for them right now.
Correct. You cannot target striped bass right now. It's crazy. But May 1st you can. You can target speckled sea trout now. But
when it starts to get warm, you can target them.
Yeah.
And they're more likely to die.
Yeah, I could go on and on and on about how they did this, but we're not here for that right now.
No, we're not.
Anyway, just be careful of what you do with the Bay and follow what's going on with the regulations and how they make them. So that's all I can say with that, I guess.
Well, I'd like to say something to that last question though. How can we help the fish in the Bay? Getting involved with organizations like the CCA.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree 100%.
Cambo, thank you. Cambo, if he's on here, he does events. What is it now? Once a month?
It's just referring to Stephen Cambora's Cambo trout.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Great angler, kayak fisherman. He goes to the different lakes and rivers. I think he goes further north now, but to do cleanups.
Gosh, I need it more further north, man.
Tons of trash that I see in the photos that he posts.
Cambo trout's amazing. He was on my boat. I got to say one thing about him real quick. Cambo trout is an incredible fisherman, but he squeals like a schoolgirl when he hooks a fish. And I had to discipline that boy 4 times on the boat one day because he made so much noise on the bow of that boat that he was, it was funny as heck. And he's like, he'd make noise in the night. He's like, "Hey man," and he's like, "Oh," he did a great video. He did a great video that day too. But anyway, I love Cambo trout. He can fish real well.
I do too. I love his enthusiasm. If you're listening, please do not change. Please do not change. I love how he gets happy when he's fishing. I like to see people get really excited.
And he's so well spoken.
There's a lot of trash talk going on in this interview.
Cambo trout is such a well-spoken gentleman.
Stop.
Got another question. You gonna take this one, sweetie?
Yes. All right, Bob. Ask Pete about his no fish, no pay policy.
Do you notice the smiley face on that question? Okay. If I would never for the life of me ever do that. For one, the only place I've had skunks is at the Susquehanna Flats. And I think I've had one at the CBBT, but in all these thousands of trips, that doesn't happen. But if somebody's that worried about that, I'll let them go on a charter boat and hold their buddy's hand while they wait their turn to winch in controlled up fish. So no pay. That's funny. Rob Engelbert. I'm going to mark that name in my book.
Right.
That's not winning the prize, right?
No, I like that one though. That's good stuff. I like it.
That is good stuff. But let me tell you guys, and actually I do have no skin in the game with this one. Pete's just a friend of mine, but you will not go on his boat and get skunked. Sorry if I jinxed you, Pete, but it's just not going to happen.
Here's the secret. I cover so much ground and so many miles, and I do it so quick, and I've got 4,000 plus trips under my belt. That there's always, I tell folks on the boat, if we have a couple, 3 spots that aren't producing, I've got an answer. It might be the wrong answer, but I've got so many answers. At some point, I'm going to have the right one. And knock on real wood. That's real wood. Knock on wood, we'll catch fish. But Mother Nature's the biggest detractor on catching fish. She can mess things up. But anyway, go ahead.
My man D-Train, I don't feel like I've talked to you in a bit, buddy. Hope all is well. And he asked, what is your most memorable guided fishing trip that Grant wasn't on?
That was one of my questions.
Well, that's what your question is. You want me to answer that one?
No, what is the most memorable guided fishing trip? And D-Train gets credit for the question.
I've had so many great trips and very many memorable ones. But I just had a trip very recently. I mean, very recent. It was a father, daughter, son, and the boy was adopted from Vietnam when he was about 6. At 3 years old, this little boy was left at a bus stop in Vietnam, deaf, 3 years old, abandoned at a bus stop at 3. This guy in Maryland, Tim, he actually lives in PA, adopted this little boy at 6 years old. And now the boy is 9 or 10. They don't even know his exact age. But he got on my boat. He immediately gave me a high five, fist bump, and big smile on his face. Could not speak a lick of English or hear anything. I take that back. He just got a gizmo attached to his head with some ear things, and now he can hear noises, but he hasn't learned to speak yet, and he doesn't understand anything yet. But he's learning. This boy, the catching was really good, by the way. I showed him how to cast. The father said he's a quick learner. Within 5 minutes, I had this boy casting a spinning rod, and he's never done it. And then we're using a paddle tail just like that. And immediately his rod is bent over, and he's making noises. He's deaf. He's making this noise that I'd never heard before, but it was happy noise. And after several hours of catching these fish, casting and retrieving, I'll send you a picture I let him drive the boat back across the bay. It was amazing. This kid inspired me like you can't imagine. This boy did it all, and he did it all in one day in just a few minutes. And then right before they left, he jumped up and gave me a big hug. So, and that's unbelievable. So to me, I've caught a lot more fish. I've caught a lot bigger fish. I've had great trips with lots of great folks, but that was the one that sticks in my brain right now.
Man, that was a great story.
Yeah, man.
I felt like I was there. That was a great story, heartwarming, and good stuff. It's what we hope to have this show be all about. Well, Migs, your question was just kind of asked, but Migs asked it. I want to hear the story of your favorite client you put on fish. We got that. You want to ask this one? Let's see.
How do you pronounce that?
Nitrous oxide?
Oh, there you go. Nitrous oxide. Best thing to remove fish smell from your hands. Yes.
You know what? I don't know, because they still smell like fish.
Yes, mine do smell.
No, I come home and take a shower and use some soap, but I don't do anything spectacular at all. I don't know.
Maybe stay away from catfish. They're the worst when it comes.
My wife and daughter run away from me when I come home until I'm heavily showered. But
Nitrous, you just got to be a man like Walleye Pete and smell like fish.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
You just got to go with it, man.
Gotta go with it.
Well, one thing I want to say about that, and this is where I really appreciate connecting with people when fishing. So I was pier fishing in where was I? Maryland. really amazing gentleman I was fishing with, and he said to me, he said, never wash your hands before fishing. He said the chemicals and the smell. He says you actually want your fish, your hands to smell when you're fishing. Now, I don't know what science is behind that.
Well,
I
well,
didn't
you know, and
wash
I buy that. I'll buy that one. I'll buy that one.
yeah.
I don't want people to touch their suntan lotion on their hands and on
Yeah.
their lure. I always stop them. Like, make sure you're careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, smells like that probably could do something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I don't know for sure. But I think I believe.
Well, that would, you know, if you're supposed to have stinky hands going into fishing, definitely not a problem for me. Got a
It's
question?
an interesting show we're having here.
Got a question from Chris T. Chris asks, what water temp do you like when shallow water fishing?
Okay, well, I do love the 60 to 70 range. 60 to 70 is probably my favorite time in shallow water. You know, below 60, I might catch bigger fish, but I catch less fish. And then over 60, when I say fish, 50 to 60 is mostly stripers, but specks can happen. 60 to 70 is when specks really start showing. And also there's a lot more stripers in that water. The post-spawn stripers are out of the rivers. So, you know, and then I like 60 to 70. 70 to 80 can work. And then over 80 kind of stinks, but not when there's specks around or reds because they like hot water. So anyway, so 60 to 70, Chris.
All right, my man Tim is going for, he's going for 2 walk-on trips. I don't even know if that's possible.
Oh, I love this one.
Oh.
Why are you called Walleye Pete?
My mother named me that. She thought I looked like a fish when I was born. No, I'm just kidding. My mom might be watching it because she was on Facebook, but I hope that she got to it. But anyway, my mom's in Ocala, Florida. Walleye Pete came from, I grew up in upstate New York, fishing for walleyes on Oneida Lake with my grandmother, who's my grandmother and my dad were my fishing, they were my influences. My grandmother was crazy. She fished daylight till dark and she never had a real job. But anyway, I didn't call myself Walleye Pete there. Everybody could fish for walleyes up there. When I came down to Maryland in 1995 and I bought a boat right away, I mean, within 10 minutes, I bought a boat. I fell in love with Chesapeake Bay. And I called myself on the marine radio, Walleye Pete. That's where I called myself Walleye Pete. And then social media started to happen. And then I did a little TV thing with George Poveromo, and he called me Walleye Pete there. And so between all that stuff, the Walleye Pete thing just kind of stuck. Yep, that's it.
I think it's here to stay. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yes.
I mean, what are you? You're 35 years old now, right?
Yeah, I wish.
Scott Kem asked, he says, what month would you start targeting reds in Lower Maryland? And if I come on your boat, can I break some of the rules?
Oh, I love that.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Can you? I like that. Break some of the rules. Holy mackerel. No rules broke. I don't want anybody getting hurt. I don't want rods getting broke, even if it's your rod. But yeah, I'll tell you what, I had a guy get hurt real bad and I almost had to call a helicopter. So I am puckered up over rules breaking. But anyway, that's all good. What month would you start targeting reds in the lower? Okay, here's what happens with reds. The first full moon in May, they come up and they get in the islands, the shallows. Now, they might do it more at night, and I don't fish it at night. But over the last couple of years, there's been quite a few redfish caught during the daytime in speck water, in shallow water structure stuff, in grass beds. But the first full moon in May, which is later in May this year, reds come up in there and eat soft crabs. So they can be caught in May. And then after that, you know, they get out and, you know, they start getting in those gigantic schools. You know, July, they start catching them out there. They might get them in June there too, but I don't go after them out there. It's not reliable and consistent. So May it can happen. But what I tell folks, August 15 to September 15 is the best time for me. I like it, but it can happen. It can change. I adapt to every situation every year. When it comes to migratory fish, they change their tune every year. They might not come up when they did last year. They might come up later. They might not come up at all. So I go out and I evaluate, I observe, I watch, and I cover as much ground as I can. And when it happens, I react to it. So if I have, but I don't know what's going to happen this year, but I know May they will show up in those islands, but not in big numbers. I could be mistaken. And then, July, August, September is good in the open main stem of the bay.
Now, when you talk about reds coming up into the shallows, you mentioned the first full moon in May. Are you talking about bulls or are we talking about puppies?
Bulls.
Wow.
Bulls, giants, man. Everyone's
talking about being able to catch bull reds and how many feet of water?
2, 3, 4. Yeah, they come up into that water. That's for sure. And if I had to catch one or get my head lopped off, I'm probably going to go to South Marsh Island at night, beach the boat, and fish off the shore of South Marsh Island with soft crab, and wait it out and hope I get a bite. But that's an all-nighter.
Spot burner.
No, it's legit. It is legit. Soft crab. Definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, let's pause for a second because I know you and I are on the same page on this, Pete. What do you think about spot burning on the bed?
Oh my goodness.
Well, okay. Well,
you don't have to answer.
No, it's all good. Spot burning on the bay. I mean, I spot burn the islands. I do my seminars, but here's my take on it. If one spot is all you got, then maybe you need to go bowling or something. I don't know. You need to learn more spots.
No.
Fist down on that.
We're saying what happened to the neutrality?
Hey,
you gotta have game. You gotta have
you gotta cover ground. You gotta be more than a one-trick pony. The power plants in the winter, everybody knows the fish are there. They just don't know when they're biting exactly. So, the guys that put in their time and work hard catch big fish there. Guys that go once in a while might catch one, and then they post a picture, and then, that's called spot burning. But you know what? Whip-de-doo, it's the power plant. It doesn't matter. Yes. But anyway, everywhere else, fish move, they come, they go. Yes. You gotta get more spots.
Yes.
So that you don't have to worry about spot burning. Care less about spot burning.
Mm-hmm. That is a good point. Fish move. So even if you spot burn to your content, fish will move.
If you have a great little stump field that's holding fish, I mean, when I'm catching fish in the islands, I am not reporting where I'm catching. If somebody sees me there, then I guess I'm busted. But they come and they go from those spots. So here's an example. In fact, I think you were probably there. I was catching specks on the east side. I was catching them in several different areas. And then there was one particular spot that was pretty hot for a little bit. And some boats started showing up there. And then the bite fizzled out. But I kept catching in other areas. But those boats, they quit. A lot of the boats that were there stayed there and kept fishing it even though they weren't catching. So they'll stay in an area for a little bit, but then, once a lot of boats gets in there, it's over. But so what? In my world, I don't care. I'm going to keep pressing and keep moving. That's what I do.
Any other comments?
Oh, I want to make sure, we have some more questions. Pete, you have a couple of extra minutes because we've had so many questions tonight. Yeah. I just want to make sure we get to as many as we can.
Well, my rate's going to double. I'm just kidding. It's all good, man. I got nothing to do. I'm not working tomorrow, man. I am power washing my roof tomorrow. So.
I want to ask this one before we go.
Which one? Go for it. That's all. You have the floor, Lady C.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think I know the answer to this one, but
maybe other people don't.
Yes, exactly. What or who do you contribute to your success?
Oh, and who might be on the show tonight?
Well, I've got a couple. I got a couple for sure. Certainly, my dad took me fishing all the time. He carried me under his arm across streams, and he was an expert. He was an expert at reading current. Even though I'm really good at reading current over those islands, my dad, at a very young age, he taught me to read current. And here's how he did it. He would put me in a good spot, trout fishing in, streams, trout, upstate New York. And he'd say, "Are you done yet?" Because I didn't catch anything, And then he'd move in there and he would flip that, whatever he was throwing, just a little further up under that bank or just in the right seam where the fish would lay. And he would catch a fish right out from under my nose. And at 8 years old, I remember one time he did that to me. I ran behind a tree and said, "Shit." you know, and I don't know if my mother, if she's listening, I don't know if my dad went home and told her or not, but I did not get a spanking for that. So, but anyway, I
He
think
just said Smith, guys. He said Smith. Smith.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, my grandmother was an insanely incredible angler, just a lady. She never, ever had a job. Her father was the superintendent of inland fisheries in New York State. So he was the boss of all the fish hatcheries. She married a game warden, and all she did was fish. And all I did was try to stay with her as much as I could because that's what we did all summer. Till I got a little older and started liking other things. But anyway,
games.
When I was really young, I fished with Grandma all the time, and she just incredibly inspired me to fish. And then one other guy, Pete Dressler, was in Worldwide Angler, which Title Fish Worldwide Angler back in the late 90s. His name was Superfish. Him and I became fast friends, and we fished a lot. And he told me that I could guide, and I got my license, but he told me a lot of things, and he inspired me and made me believe I could do it. So, he was a big reason right there. That guy named Superfish he's passed away several years ago. But, he was pretty old. He was older when I met him. But anyway, he was amazing. So those three right there. And my mom let me skip school to go fishing.
Oh.
I think her friends.
Good mom. That's a good mom right there.
I think her friends were appalled at that, but she said, "Oh, he could be doing worse things," which is true. I could have been doing worse things, but instead I was fishing. If we got the first warm rain in April in upstate New York, the first warm rain, I was skipping school because that's when those trout came out of everywhere. So, anyway, so thanks, Mom.
I think Mom actually, your mother might be on in the audience tonight. So guys, say hello to Joyce.
Yeah.
Mom.
Hi.
Oh yeah, we have Bill Montgomery from BKD.
Yeah.
How you doing, Bill? He says, there it is. He's representing part of the prize coming out tonight.
Yeah.
What is the most common reason that fishing rods are broken on your boat? Man, people are just like sitting and spiking.
Here's why. Okay. When you're fighting fish, if you're fighting like a big amberjack or a big redfish with this rod right here, this Steve Fogel backyard custom rods, 6'8" medium action jigging stick. It can handle a giant red, but what you cannot do while fighting a giant red is high stick. And what high stick means is where you're holding the rod at, you're pointing it way up high, and it's really doubling over. Where you want to fight the fish without high sticking quite so much. You don't want to point that rod straight up and double it over. You can break them that way, although that's rare, but it can happen. And then the other way, you don't do the 4-foot rule. If you do a 2-footer and then try to pick the fish up out of the water, oh my God, you're going to break the tips off all day long. I've had a tip break when we put a fish in the net, and then I put the net down, but the guy didn't follow with the rod tip, and it snapped it. Here's one this is my all-time favorite. It's a nightmare of mine. I told people to always hook the lure to the reel, hook the hook to the reel bag. So a guy, instead of hooking them to the eye, we don't ever hook them to the eyes because you can nick the eyes and then you break your line when you're fighting a fish. Anyway, I had a guy, I told him to hook it to the bail. He took it from way up front here. Where am I? Okay. He took it from way up front. The lure was only hanging 2 feet, and he went, meow, bang, and the rod broke in half. I soiled myself upon that happening. I am telling you, it was ugly. You wouldn't have wanted to be on my boat for that. So don't do that, what I just said. 4-foot rule, don't do abrupt stuff to the tips. Be very careful. Don't pull them out with the fish, with the rod. Don't pull the fish out with the rod. And don't high stick. That's it. And breaking them indoors, of course, something like that.
And apparently bring a change of clothes.
Yeah, you know what? If I had done that on your boat, I would have just jumped in.
I see that question. Speaking of smells, what's your take on WD-40 on a lure? I have zero experience with that, but I've read it. So I've read it. I have not done it. And speaking of WD-40 on a lure or any of that stuff on a lure, I don't think that stuff can hurt. You know, that smelly jelly and all that stuff. I don't think it hurts at all. I think it's good, but I don't use it. But I don't think it hurts at all. So when people bring it, I ask them not to spill it on my boat, and and use it. I think in the cold it helps more than it does in the warm, but I don't know that for sure. But WD-40, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Well, apparently it works for everything, right?
You know what? I'd heard that before, but you know, it's been a while since I've heard people say WD-40.
Yeah, I love that question. Yeah. What do we have? So, John Hooker, what do you love to see people learn about fishing? I love that question too.
I like that question. What do you love to see people learn about fishing? Well, I love to see a lot of things. I love to see people learn safety, you know, not breaking sticks, not getting hooked. I teach safety on the boat all day, every day. And if I upset somebody, I'll hug them too. I'll give them a quick hug. So we're going to be, you know, safety and all that stuff. But learning the joy of catching a fish, the joy of releasing and seeing it swim away. You know, and certainly people can keep fish when it's in season to keep them, and they can eat fish. But I love to see people enjoy the nature, you know, the beauty of it all. You know, getting out of the city and coming out on the boat and seeing what Mother Nature has to offer, and just loving that. That's why I still do this stuff. I mean, I've been doing this over 4,000 trips for 22 years. I still love it every single day. So that's what I love. I love it, and I love to have people share that love with me.
Love that answer.
That is a great answer. We are well over time already.
Okay.
Time flies.
Time flies. What do you craziest thing, or move on to?
I think we should do the prize, because I think the rest of our questions were answered pretty much by the audience.
I think we should too. Pete, what do you think? Should we do the drum roll?
Yeah.
Drum roll.
Nick
is trying to get in with a late question, but too late, buddy.
I'm not even playing anything, I get excited.
So you're drum rolling, waiting for me to tell you something, or what?
Yes, that's what the drum roll is.
Okay. I like the John Hooker questions right in front of my nose. It's a simple question. It's simple. It's not technical, and that's what it's all about right there. What do you love to see people learn about fishing?
You know, I kind of agree.
I love to see them learn about the environment. I love to see them learn and respect the fish. That's it. That's a good question. So that's my pick right there.
I was hoping you picked that one, Pete, because you know, if you're nothing else, Pete, and I'm stoking your ego here, but if you're nothing else, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you know that about yourself, but you know, you've really got that at your core. I've got an education background.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely recognized it the first time I was at a seminar, the first time I fished with you in Florida, the first time I fished with you here in Maryland. So I think that question is really simple, but it does capture a lot about you, and was a great question. Guys, we only had YouTube audience tonight. No Facebook, and we had a full room, and we didn't get to ask hardly any of our questions.
Man,
they were all taken.
For those of you who watched on YouTube, thank you so much. We had a lot of new people in the room tonight. We have so much great content coming this summer with the historical piece, with the pier fishing tour, all of our normal content. So we really appreciate if you subscribe and like our channel. To our sponsors, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, everyone who watched, we're eternally grateful. Pete, you are the man. Thank you so much. Any last words?
Yeah, last words. Grant and Lady C, you guys are doing an awesome job. I watched you start this thing a while ago, and it wasn't all that much. You know, you tried hard, and you were doing the best you could. But what I'm seeing you put together now is really quality stuff. You're really putting together some quality videos. I don't watch a lot of videos, but I find myself watching your videos. And I loved watching you lose that fish you got spooled on. That's 100% your fault.
It was my fault, right? My fault or her fault?
No, her fault.
Fault.
I call spades a spade. Either drag was too loose or you didn't have enough line on that spool. Which one was?
I didn't have enough line.
Okay, then
You're the first one. Yeah. because Steve Fogel was saying it, and a couple other guys. I think Dave McCullum was saying, "Chase down that fish, Captain." I'm like, dude, that fish was gone.
I honestly,
I've had one ski on my boat with a red, but I did love her enthusiastic distraughtness. I loved it because she put the rod. I was waiting for you to break it. Why didn't you break it?
It's like, ah!
She handled it like a champ. I would have been cussing.
I really think even if I had a little bit more of mine in there, I think we all agreed on the boat. If you saw how fast this thing took off,
Man,
Yeah, I agree. So I'll come back anytime and chat anytime you want. I'd love to be back. You got a good thing going on. I can hear I can see, I can hear, and you have a good audience. It's all good.
man, Pete, thank you so much. That's really humbling. Thank
John,
you so much.
how are we going to give John Hooker? I need to communicate with John Hooker.
yeah.
Okay, so John,
I got BKDs for him, and he gets a walk-on, whether it be a $200 off of a guide trip or him himself on a walk-on.
yeah, John. So message me on Facebook, either through the fishing channel or Grant Elliott. That's GrantElliott.
Well, we'll reach out to you as well, but yeah, the email. That's another way to get a hold of
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, we don't want to give out all your private information on this video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll hook up with John after this.
All right.
And
That's
we'll
something
make
you
that happen.
can do. Just Google Walleye Pete. You can find me.
Yes,
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Thanks so much, everybody, and we are out.
Got off in town, resident on 70 Road. Got a nice wife and kids, y'all right inside the grove. You know I like Mr. Clark. Yeah, I should know he is my friend. Say if I just stay out the grave.